Ladies and gentlemen, friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are again very early in 2021, and I'm so pleased to have some more good news. And I'm even more pleased that it's starting to form a bit of a pattern. So we've had Stephen Pullman's going out with his new role with Nalian. We've got Elise Weber from Skytra with her new news and positive news. And now we've got a friend of the show, Sebastian Scholte, or as I say, everybody has a doppelganger, and this is the Jason Statham of our industry. So, Sebastian Scholte, welcome, sir. Nice to have you back on.
Likewise, Chris. Always a pleasure to see you again.
Likewise. And I've got to say, mate, you're looking sharp, son. You're looking sharp.
You too. You too.
I wish.
Oh, you do.
Now, Sebastian, great, good news, my friend. New CEO, KALES Airline Services. Fantastic news, huh?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. It was. It took some time, but I really had different options. But this was the best fit for me, and I'm enjoying myself a lot in the last 1.5 months. I already joined, and looking forward to a lot of great stuff. It's a great company, good reputation, well-known brand, good people working there. A lot of challenges. So it's all great stuff so far.
Excellent. Now, before we get too far into KALES, during your transition from Jan de Rijk, you did a white paper and we put that up. You had some very, very strong thoughts of how you thought things were going. Do you want to just give us a little bit of feedback now as to, what do you think were the major learnings for the industry as a result of the pandemic?
I think one thing that's accelerated a little bit more than I thought is the digitization, not only in our industry, but in general, in the whole world. I mean, in e-commerce, how we interact, how we are talking right now. Just to give you an example, when I started at KALES, in the first week, I saw 10 of our best customers, our biggest customers, I saw all online with their whole team, which of course, in pre-COVID would have been impossible. Even, to travel around the world to meet them all would have been impossible. Nevertheless, it is very efficient. I still believe, like I said in the white paper as well, that the human touch, the human interaction remains very, very important. And I also think, like I discussed in the white paper, that everybody's talking about the new normal. I personally hate the term. I think a lot of people want to go back to the old normal. And the good things of this so-called new normal is the higher level of digitization, less traveling, which of course will also be good for the environment. And I think we're working a lot more efficient like this. The home, working from home has been a lot better than a lot of people would have expected. I mean, so I think this whole crisis has actually accelerated some developments, and of course it has shaped up a lot of the economy and a lot of growth. But maybe in the long term, some of the things, of course, the horrible death, taking apart and everybody who's got taken ill, but the acceleration of digitization and another way of working, I think maybe has helped us. On the other side, what I think is horrible, of course, for everybody with these lockdowns that are very needed, but especially the young generation, the young people, I think are suffering most, and obviously also the old people, in their last years. But I hope that that we don't get a gap in talent, and that people are not that we get the right people with the right attitudes, right? Because it's a pity to basically stand still at an age of 14, 15, 18 for a year, and maybe in England where you are and me in the Netherlands, the education is more or less still good, but a lot of other countries, they just they don't have an iPad, they don't have internet, so they have to be taught maybe by the television. So that's I hope we can catch up, because those young people are the future of tomorrow, obviously.
I think on that point, Sebastian, I think what's going to happen now is everybody's going to readjust, obviously, but the younger generation have got a totally different perspective with sustainability, with the diet, what's important to them, the balance of work and life. Yeah. And I think this is now it's going to accentuate all of those priorities. And I genuinely think the next generation who are going to start looking for jobs, they're going to start looking more at the type of company that they work for.
No, yeah.
Priorities that company has, what values that company has, how sustainable that company is, because so many people have been displaced through no fault of their own. And now they'll start looking around and thinking, well, which were the shaky companies going into it? Why were they shaky? Can they survive? Which were the companies that were able to sustain going through certain activities? And I think it's going to put companies more, and the people who run them, like yourselves, it's going to put people more on that spot, under the spotlight, to be able to express what that future looks like for anybody who joins. So I think it's going to be a good thing.
No, I think so as well. The other thing, it's all about, the supply and demand. Pre-COVID, we had a low unemployment rates, so there was a high demand for young talents. We did everything to get the young talent, right, as companies, as businesses, and they had basically to choose. And maybe, yeah, what I've seen, and I was very fortunate to be able to give some lectures to universities of young people, right? And it's beautiful to see young people with a lot of eagerness. But what I tell them as well, don't expect to be a director or a manager with 3 days working in the week, right? I mean,
Yep.
so it's still all work-life balance is very important, but it's still hard work that gets you further in life, right? Also for the younger generation. Unfortunately, there will be more unemployment after this crisis, and especially young talent, right? So for young people joining our industry, it will be a little bit more difficult to get a job. But nevertheless, I think we as an industry, we still have to focus on bringing in new talent, because that's how we can really distinguish ourselves and how we can improve, right?
100%, 100%. And I think what you're saying there is, once we do identify who to bring in, we've got to make sure that we upskill them, cross-skill them, and new skill them. So again, it's part of the sustainability criteria, but that we also bring in some sort of, like a cascaded leadership capability, so they understand, coming back to what you said, that, patience isn't just a virtue. It's something that people have to have now as part of their career, and also setting their own strength of foundation, so that when they do move, when they do put themselves forward, there's more substance than just, referencing on internet or looking up certain sites and thinking that you're an expert, because there's very few experts left in this world now, as this last year has shown.
Sure. And I think we excel because we have to fight for something. And if you have everything, like a lot of young people, including my kids again, but they're quite spoiled. I mean, maybe a little bit complacent, and they don't necessarily have to drive. So some bit of hardship sometimes is good to, as a wake-up call, and just to walk a little bit faster, right? And do a little bit more.
Yeah, no, I agree. Same with my kids and now the grandkids. You sort of look at yourself and you think what you didn't have, and you think, I want to give that to my kids and the next generation. And then you look at them and you think, lucky buggers. Do you know what I mean? Now they don't realize how hard it is to get those sort of things. So it's that fine balance, isn't it?
Sure. Always have something to desire for, right?
Yeah. And the same in the workplace. I think a new way of appreciating what it means to have a job, and what a job means to you, everybody who relies on you as part of their lives. So important now to appreciate that and not take it for granted.
Sure. Yeah. And also never, be very happy what you have, but also always want more, right? Because the drive to want more helps us improve, helps us to grow also as companies. So it should never be enough. We all should improve, and it should always be better and more, right?
Yeah. And on that point though, Sebastian, I think a lot of companies now, they took their eye off this sustainability capability, and they just went for continued growth instead of whether or not it was making margins and profitability. And especially in our industry, and with cargo focus, in some cases, there's almost like a race to the bottom with regards to rates and contracts, SLAs, etc. So hopefully now, as people have been able to get rid of that legacy of waste, and like you said, this the digitisation program is actually, it's almost advanced us 10 years in 1 year. And it's incredible. And hopefully that will continue, and that's so important.
I'm convinced it will continue. I'm convinced. That's the good thing of the crisis, the only good thing of this crisis. But for the rest, of course, it has been horrible. No, dreadful experience. Now, in your role when you were with Tiaka as well, it was all about collaboration and coming together. And again, I would say most of the regulatory bodies and the representative bodies, they've managed now to also focus on what's important.
So I think they've also shown, including governments, that you don't always have to be caught up in all this administration and bureaucracy. You know, you can, if something makes sense and it's logic, why not push it through and all support it?
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot more enablers in the business now than there was blockers before, you know?
Yeah, on the other hand, but this is very political. I mean, the role of the government is a lot more important, and luckily we have a role of a government in many countries, in the right way to help us through this epidemic. On the other hand, I hope once this epidemic is over, they don't get used to this over regulating and over involvement of the government. I mean, please let us go back to business then again, and let them stand on the sideline a little bit, right?
Yeah, valid point again. Now, during your review, and like I said, the points you made in the white paper and before joining KALES, what do you think have been sort of like the new challenges or the new learnings that the various sectors that you're now going to get involved with, what do you think it was? So from a carrier focus, customer focus, let's start with the two of them, but from a carrier focus, how do you think they're going to change now moving forward?
Oof, it's a very good question. From a carrier focus, what I also said in the paper, I think if you're looking forward and what's happening today, everybody knows, right? Well, maybe there's not enough belly capacity. There's more, the demand has been reduced less than the capacity has, so the rates have gone through the roof. But that's not going to last forever. Having said that, I do believe that wide body passenger capacity will not get back to previous levels very soon. For the simple reason, like we just mentioned in the beginning, because we are working from home, we're going to travel less for business, and that will have an impact on capacity. And I think that will have an impact, long-lasting impact on rates, and it will also make freighters more attractive. The only thing I hope, and that's always the challenge a little bit, also, from a freighter airline perspective, when once you have a couple of good years, you go to your board and you say, okay, guys, I see, the market is good. It's a good outlook. I want to buy freighters. Then they get a big, consultant in to basically back up what you just said. And then you go to order them and they're going to be delivered 3 years later, exactly in a downturn, right? So, What I hope is that we don't get this famous pig cycle now, that everybody starts rushing into getting extra freighters, extra conversions, etc., which of course is a need today, right? But will it be there also? Will that need be there also 5 years from now? I definitely believe that the business case for freighters for the future is better than pre-COVID, for sure. So I think we need more freighters. It's just to a certain extent that not everybody wants to jump into that, right? That's one part of the equation. The other thing with airlines, I think still some airlines. Some have gone bankrupt, some are being kept alive, rightfully so, some maybe not rightfully so. So there's also maybe some inefficient capacity coming back, right? Some airlines that should not have survived in that. Talking about cargo and passengers, I think right now the case couldn't be better to outsource to a GSA. And the reason is, if you want to reduce your OPEX, your operational expenditure, and from a high level, from an airline perspective, you say, guys, I have to reduce it. Let's make it variable. Let somebody, hand it over to somebody who knows it very well. It's core business, right? Like, for example, at KALES, we know exactly we're represented in all over Europe, in the Americas, in Asia. So we can take over your whole business. We're much more agile, much more flexible, and it's like a one-stop shop, right? And I think so. It's a good case for GSAs. I think the airlines should focus on the flying, and I think especially smaller airlines, they the business case for maybe totally outsourcing the complete cargo department to other parties who are much better at that than themselves. So why reinvent the wheel when you already have a very good wheel running there, right? And the other hand, I think even for big legacy carriers that always wanted to have their own people everywhere, I think that's a thing of the past. So I think I'm not saying that all the big carriers should outsource their cargo completely if it's a big part of the business. Of course not. It's still a very big part and a very important part of the business. But why have so many own offices everywhere, right? And as a GSA, we're a lot more agile and flexible than they are, and because they have, rightfully so, because of huge organizations, they're a lot more bureaucratic. So therefore, they're a little bit slower in taking actions than we can. So I think it's a good business case for that. So I'm happy to be part of KALES, right?
It's at the right time, yeah.
I think it's a good time for GSAs. And I think, yeah, the future outlook is also good, also for cargo and in general for airlines. But then again, and for freighters, right? So I think freighters will definitely be a very important part.
Yeah, oh no, 100%. And like you said, especially now in the short term. Now, can I ask you something? Do you think that from the shipper and the forwarder, that that people will start to collaborate and they'll become like consolidators themselves and do their own charters?
Oh, to a certain extent, you see that happening, right? I mean, there's some very large shippers, one in particular in the closing industry, that does it already and has its own forwarder and does their own charters. And yes, and look at Amazon, and they also do it. So yes, I think you increasingly see that, because look what is happening right now. And maybe I don't know if that will have an effect on the inflation, or if there will be inflation later on. But the prices they have to pay right now, some shippers that heavily rely on air freight, excuse me, it's a lot more than before. So that has to be translated back in the end product, right? If you look at an iPhone, the air freight is very, part of the air freight is very small. So the increase is also not a big impact, right? You don't see. Yeah, a triple air freight will not result in a triple cost of a smartphone, right? So it will have a real effect. But some other products, it definitely will. Look at perishables, look at some clothing brands, and and so that at the end it will have an effect on the consumer, and therefore I think a case also to control your own network better, right? So that's the whole rationale of Amazon of having that capacity, not only from a cost perspective that they always have the same cost, but also from a capacity guarantee perspective. So you don't all of a sudden you're bumped off and you cannot deliver your goods, you cannot deliver as promised. So also very, very smart move on the right time, and that results in, of course, in their very, very high share price, which you see now with Amazon.
Exactly. Now, just going through the hierarchy, so carriers. Now, from a customer perspective, and I think one of the things that people are seeing now is the way companies have handled themselves with regards to their customers, whether it's on the passenger side with refunds or rolling the value over, or that's not going to be forgotten when the good times start to come. So how you deal with your customer, I think, is ever more important now. Now, in our industry, and you look all around the world, you look at congestion problems, you look at access onto docks, you look at pickup times, you look at delays, etc. You look at the interface between what the customer sees as the carrier and the handling agent. Now, with that customer focus, do you think there's ways now of improving that as part of what you're going to be doing?
Yeah, sure. I think well, we have said that also in a previous podcast. I think the information is already there before, right? So what we need to do is communicate a lot more and be open in our communication. And like we said last time, stop the blame game. The standard SOPs with bonus and malus, and please reward people for their mistakes and let them share their mistakes, because if a mistake has been made early in the air cargo supply chain and the others know it later, the better they can act to and correct it, right? So I think yes, we're one ecosystem, and we should work more together. And the oil to make that machine work is information and is communication. So that's very crucial to cooperate better. And I think also, but coming back to the role a little bit the GSSA has, right? It's also the services, the added service that you can deliver in that, right? So it's not only doing a simple sales, it's so much more. You basically, you're the representation of the airline, right? You're the whole cargo department, including, not only the reservations, but the claims, the handling supervision, the relation with the customer, etc., etc., etc. So you do a lot more than just sales. And I think they play a very, very important role in general, the GSAs in the air cargo supply chain. And unfortunately, sometimes a little bit not enough in the spotlight, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. And I've had a lot of dealings with this extra S within the GSSA, and I've always been a believer that, if you've got a contract, you should deliver it. Why would you then pay somebody else to oversee that being delivered and how that interfaces? But what I also appreciate, and in many cases it can be done, is if you actually bring that added value and that not just the validation of the service that's being done, but the verification that it's being done effectively, there's a great opportunity there for that balance. And I think the way it's sold to the customer and the way it's sold to the carrier and the handling agent, it can be a bridge of success rather than, like a valley of concern, and I think there's great opportunities there. That ancillary services model, do you think there's going to be any new opportunities there within the business sector? So I'm referring obviously to the ongoing vaccines and having skills that are related now to, a really, really effective farmer.
Yeah, very, very, very important point, very valid. What we see also at KALES, we have a special teams of COVID experts with the vaccines. So we have and obviously some of the big carriers, they have their own experts and they know very well what they're talking about, but not all the airlines have that. So
Exactly.
it's great that you have a party that you can outsource your services and has those capabilities, and not only it's on pharmaceuticals, it's on perishables, it's on live animals, it's on dangerous goods, and the advantage what we have, for example, also what we apply at KALES, is that we take best practices, right? So we get to look in a lot of shops. Exactly. And how things work, and so we try to apply the best things of each of the airlines, and so then you have like a super service based on that, right? So definitely a very valid point, and a way to really add value for our customers and our airlines.
Yeah. No, I agree with that, and also having such, like you said, such global viewed individuals, when it comes to things like accreditations, and there's lots of things that can be done on behalf of either the carrier or the handling agent, where like I said, you bridge that success. I think there's incredible opportunities now to streamline and also to make people more focused on being a specialist as part of that extra S within the GSA community.
No, and I think besides that, it's also what we have a lot of data. We represent a lot of airlines, right? We're quite big, and with that data and with other data that we can have, I mean, we have invested a lot in the digitization, like I said, but also in the back office and in BI, so in business intelligence.
Yep.
So we're able to really give our customers a real view of the market, what is happening, a good analysis. So it's almost, I don't want to say it's a consultancy, but we really have the tools, right, and the right KPIs to help our customers make the right decisions, and us to make the right decisions for our customers, for the airlines, right? And I think that's also a key element that really distinguishes ourselves as KALES of the rest of the other competitors. But I think in general that adds value to the airlines.
Yeah.
Again, information, what we talked about, right?
Yeah. No, it's so important, and having the confidence to share it, and also to make sure that it's being looked at properly, and going back to sharing a single version of truth, so there's not all this duplication and everybody coming up with their own ideas and their own standards, and then also just using what you need, and a term that's been used, and I loved it actually when I was talking with Stephen, deduplication of information. I like that now. I think that's quite a trendy. Well, I would never have dreamt of something as simple and as obvious as that. But deduplication, there's so much repetition and duplication and disagreement in our industry. And at the end of the day, if that data pool is available and people are happy to use it as the single source of truth or the single version of truth, it makes, use what you need. It's a great opportunity.
No, I completely agree with you. I mean, you have a lot of experience there as well with the handling agents. they're doing double entry sometimes, right, in their own system, and then with the airlines. The same for the GSAs, and sometimes even for the RFS, for the trucking companies as well.
Yep.
So why yeah, we still get a lot via email. Not only GSAs, but it's also for the GHAs, also for the road feeding services. I mean,
Everybody.
with the technology that we have today, we can be so much more efficient, right? Maybe with RPA solutions, direct, APIs, etc.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's just having, like I say, it's just people getting together. They've all got the same level of intelligence, awareness, background. Why they just don't become more confident in themselves to have access and just say to everybody, right, you've all got your own door, your key into this data, use it, and let's use it for the good of the business. Because if we grow the cake, then we've got bigger slices in the future. So, it's more important, I think.
Yeah.
Just a simple old man's view, but I think there's great opportunities there. Now, coming back to KALES and the choice, and everybody knows them, and what I was saying to you earlier about, Peter's infamous fax that he sent back in 94, I think it was 94, where he sent the fax out, a new day, a new week, a new month, and a new company. And then it's grown substantially. I mean, it's a great organization now.
Yeah, no, it's a huge organization. Like I said, we have 35 offices in 25 countries, over 200 people. Yeah, very, very strong in Europe. Also in the Americas, we're in the footprint in Canada, Ecuador, Colombia, and in India. And so yes, it's and not only that, of course, it's people and airlines that make our business, right? So we represent a lot of airlines. We spent over 70 airlines that we do business with. With obviously with the top 10 representing a big chunk of our revenue. But yeah, what I think what really makes the difference, and what attracted me to KALES as well, is the culture of we simply make it happen. Simply great service, like we say, and that's what I love as well. I mean, let's keep things simple.
Yeah.
And let's do it. And it's the agility that we have. I mean, we're very entrepreneurial. We're a little bit decentralized. So each of our branches, of our MDs in the countries, they have their own P&L. So they run their own shop. They're their own, entrepreneur, and that's what we like to. This I think it's a formula that works very well. Nevertheless, of course, backed by a very good system in the back, right? And where I think we have state-of-the-art business intelligence, and where we can make decisions, the right decisions at the right moment. And at the end, it's all, we can talk about digital and, automation, sorry, but it's the people that really make the difference, right? So I think we really have a great team of people, very, very entrepreneurial, very well driven, and it can do culture, right? And so you ask anybody at the KALES organization for any question, you get immediately the right reply very quickly, and that's what we like, right? I mean, very, very customer focused and very agile.
Yeah, no, it's so important, and being a differentiator or a disruptor, and keeping on raising those standards, that's what makes the difference. Now, you mentioned about simply great services, and also the involvement, the inspiration, unparalleled service in every direction. They're really, really tall titles, to have hanging around the neck, huh? So to keep that moving forward and to keep the development, and like you said, keep people being special. Are you going to be looking at addressing the sort of the leadership styles or the leadership capability as a result of the learnings from the pandemic?
What do you mean as a result of the pandemic? So that we change our leadership style because of the pandemic?
No. Obviously, you guys, you've got your own model, and it's very successful. But what I'm seeing now from lots of organizations is they're looking at how they themselves used to develop leaders and what effort they put into it, whereas it needs to be invested into the whole organization rather than just the people. So I think individuals now are appreciating that it's not an easy thing to be a leader.
Yeah.
And that if leaders are exhibiting positive and good ways of doing it, you should accept it and really support it so that it goes faster and it makes it more effective. Because if you then look in the mirror, that's also helping you with your own job, your own security, your family security, and everything else. So I think people are looking at it differently. And, rather than looking through green eyes in the past and envy and, oh, why have they picked him, or why have they picked her, or why is she now a supervisor? And then you've got that problem or that readjustment. I think if it's looked at now holistically, with the mindset and the pressures and the anxieties and stresses that people have experienced, it's time now to do things differently and have different values. So one of the things that I know you were very positive about is, the flexibility of like what we're doing now, and how you started the podcast. You were saying about whenever could you have walked into a role like you did and met with all of your top customers and their teams in such a short period of time. So that agility and resilience, that's something that needs to be put across now for good companies to maintain that platform to becoming great.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things on this. One, I think you should always look at your own strength and never at another one's weakness, right? So I hate it when people say, well, it didn't work out because our competitor did this, and that's not fair. Come on, let's argue from our own strength, also towards our customers, right? I mean, that's always number one. Secondly, you said about leadership during this pandemic. It is easy to be a leader when you have a tailwind, right?
Yep.
And when you have perfect weather, everybody can sail a ship. But it's when you really have a big storm, then you will see, the good captains will take you through the storm, and the lesser good captains will destroy the ship and everybody on board with it. So I think what you also see through this pandemic, you see real leaders emerge, either in our business, either in our company, also in politics, right? I mean,
Yep.
I mean, we can go. I mean, we can have a separate podcast about who emerged as real, true leaders in this pandemic, in this crisis, and who hasn't. I mean, and to be honest, very quickly on this one, I think a lot of women emerge here as great leaders. If you look at, I still think Germany did more or less well. Finland, also a woman. New Zealand, all led by women. So and young and relatively young in Finland and New Zealand. So I think that makes a difference, and you have to allow people to grow, and the traditional model, like people said, okay, if you don't make your 9 to 5 at the office, and you're 5 minutes late, or you're leaving too early, then you're a bad employee. I mean, those days hopefully are gone, right? It's just output that we can measure now. We have so much information. So it doesn't matter where you are. Obviously, you should be at the office. You should interact with people, etc. But it's a complete new game, and I think that's also a much better workplace for younger people.
Yeah, no, 100%, and that's why I think, from everybody, from IATA, from Tiaka, from anybody, to start looking now at how to do that cascaded leadership model, so that the organization is aware and more involved and more participative and supportive. I think that's where things are going to be changed for the positive, and thank heavens for it as well. Now, as far as coming into the organization, like you said, what's it, a month and a half?
Yep.
A month and a half. What do you think will be the biggest wins that your organization, and you said correctly there about, not focusing on competition weaknesses or whether they do something wrong. I always think no matter what sort of sport, no matter what sort of business you're in, if you always praise your competitors, it's actually putting you there as well, because you're one of their competitors rather than on the negative. So what do you think now are going to be the biggest opportunities moving forward, or the biggest support model? So I'll give you an example. Now, there's a lot of technology out there with, automated bookings, with digital platforms, so that they can combine the older style of sales and stuff, to make things more effective. Do you think there's going to be big growth there?
Yes, definitely. I think we said it many times during this conversation. Digitization is the future, and I think digital platforms are also the future. How they will be used and how they will be implemented, there will be different models, and there's pros and cons for different models, right? I definitely believe that we can save a lot of time and become a lot more productive if bookings would go through a platform instead that everybody is doing it manually, maybe twice, right, in their own system and in somebody else's system. Having said that, but this is also my very personal opinion, right? It's not necessarily the KALES opinion, but my opinion. I think, yes, digital platforms are important, but if I would be a shipper or forwarder, I wouldn't put all my eggs, or even an airline, wouldn't put all my eggs in one basket.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
one platform will not work, obviously not because of anti-competition ruling, antitrust ruling, it cannot work either. On the other hand, and this is also a little bit the experience I had during my Jan de Rijk, because somehow the logistics industry is a little bit further in terms of automation and digitization than the air cargo industry in general. And what you see there is that big shippers, they say, okay, I will put maybe a certain percentage on a booking platform, but not everything, because yes, I want to use the market dynamics and it helps. But if, all of a sudden, you get, the market is, there's a shortage of capacity, you're screwed, right? So you want to have a little bit of security, secure and uplift. That's one. On the other hand, I think not all the airlines will keep it completely open, because unfortunately we still live in a very commoditized industry where, the more you open up, and now I'm contradicting myself, because I said we have to be open as possible, but if the airlines would keep all their capacity open and everybody does with all their rates, then rates will go down to such a level that it's no longer economic viable, right? And it's no secret that I think some of the cargo airlines made good money last year.
Yes,
probably this year. But if you look over the last 20 years and probably the next 10 years, I mean, it's a very, very thin margin business. Yeah. So we really have to do a lot, and sometimes invest a lot as well, for a relatively low return on sales. So that's what I think about the digital platforms. One obviously would work, like I said just earlier, that you do your bookings through a platform and you save a lot of manpower and more productive. That's I definitely would embrace.
Yeah. And if I was to ask you now, and I've asked a few people this, and it's only hypothetical, it's just for a bit of fun. If you were limited to doing one thing this year and one thing only, what would that one thing be that you would focus on?
In terms of KALES, you mean?
No, yourself personally.
On myself personally.
Leader,
yeah, but personally, most of my time I spent at work. So what personally at work or?
No. Yeah, but you as a leader.
As a leader, I think, and then going back to KALES, I think the most important thing right now is to give continuity. Every time a new leader comes in, it is somehow of a change. It's people don't know exactly what to expect because simply they don't know you. So I think it's really to get to know the people very well.
Yeah.
And I have a complete open door policy as well. So I like the communication, but I definitely like growth, right? So I want to make things more efficient, and I don't mind doing certain measures to make that more efficient. But at the end, what really wakes me up, what gets me going in the morning and wake me up is like successes, right? And celebrate these successes and have fun. I mean, work should be fun, and work can be fun by doing things together and making things improve and make them visible, and that everybody knows, and then again celebrate it. I mean, the more the first success that you have is a catalysator.
Yeah.
Is that the right English word, catalysator, or it's like?
Well, it's everybody will understand what it is. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's catalyzing the other successes, right? So you have to get that, and then it moves. So that's my priority. I just definitely want to make the KALES brand grow, not only where we are right now, but also in other parts of the world, right, where we're not present yet. So so a lot of opportunities.
There's huge. I think there's huge opportunities. Yeah. And they say about people being lucky, but the more people practice and the more people they put into it, the luckier they're going to be. Yeah. And I know the effort that you put in everywhere you are, and luck is a sign of a lot of hard work and a lot of effort. And I wish you the most luck possible in this new role.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. And I'm pretty sure you'll deliver it. And good luck in everything that you do, my friend, and also to everybody at KALES. And I'm sure Peter's saying about a new day, a new week, a new month, and a new company. You'll be able to add something to that, you know, a new man.
Exactly.
So
Always a pleasure, Chris.
likewise, my friend. Good luck, and I think it's going to be a great year for you.
Thanks for you too.
Yeah, touch wood. There's a lot of wood up there. Yeah.
Sure,
Cheers.
for sure. All right.
Cheers.